Yolanda, we chatted about an hour ago and the market was looking pretty flat at this stage, trading at its opening levels really. We've seen since a little break into the positive, we're up by about 0.55% at the moment, but still quite muted trade today, isn't it?
Yes, Stephen, we're probably seeing some speculators. We have come off quite dramatically yesterday. We're seeing the S&P futures turn slightly positive, and with really not much news in terms of economic indicators this afternoon. Investors are really looking for some direction, and they're looking at the S&P, and as it's just turned slightly positive, we do have some speculators thinking, you know, if it does take a turn for in terms of positive territory, we could see a run this afternoon, but still quite muted, Stephen, and really market really looking for direction at the moment.
Of course, prior to yesterday's pullback, we had 7 days of gains on the JSE. Of course, yesterday also the anniversary of the Dow hitting that very low point in March last year. Since then, it's gained about 62%. So really some positive news must be needed to actually continue and sustain the movements that we have seen over the past year.
Yes, even with the continuing rumblings out of Europe and especially out of Portugal overnight, in terms of Fitch coming out to say that their rating still remains negative. You know, it seems investors are quite cautious that we possibly could see a return dip possibly coming off, or you know, investors are looking for some kind of positive news, some indication to not turn down and move up. So move completely contrary to what happened last year this time, but still, you know, like we said earlier, not much news out, so very light volumes on the day.
Do you think this market's ripe for a correction? And if so, what sort of a pullback would you expect? I mean, are we looking at 10%, 20%?
Stephen, one should always be cautious, but a 10% is probably a fair pullback. If, however, we do see any news in terms of positivity, I think the market is looking possibly to run further. We have seen positive data out recently, manufacturers around the globe, good numbers, good, you know, possible bottoming of the global pullback, and you know, any really good news to move upward. 10% either way, Stephen, at this point.
Of course, we did have some positive numbers out of RMBH this morning. Of course, they were flagged earlier this week on Monday when it put out a trading statement. We have normalized earnings up 22% to 136.8 cents, and this company doing quite well, and its share price responding favorably today.
Yes, Stephen, they've got a nice basket of companies that are really good, that have good earnings. We saw FirstRand coming out yesterday, good results from FirstRand, and then we saw Discovery recently as well. Very good numbers, good strategy by Discovery, so all really contributing to that really good number. And also coming off, we've had a nice run in the last year. If you have a look in terms of the performance, the insurance industry has really performed quite nicely. So, you know, that feeding into those numbers. So very good numbers to them, and the market really liking it.
Of course, Metropolitan Holdings also reporting back this morning, benefiting obviously from that run-up we saw in the equity market last year, but lots of consumers under pressure, and I think Metropolitan seeing that in lapse rates within the company.
Yes, they have come out to say that they have been under pressure. They've seen a lot of defaults, cancellations of contracts, but they think that portion of in terms of their cancellation will be over. They have come out I mean, the market really liking the HEPS number coming out at the lower range, because they had forecast or mentioned a 5 to 10% down. So coming out at 7%, very much better than the market probably had anticipated. So positive for them, and we're just looking at the insurance industry really performing well. It's a very cyclical stock, so looking to benefit in the next 6 to 12 months. Very positive for them.
Liberty International shares recovering slightly today, but taking a 5% beating yesterday after it came out with results and also after it announced plans to demerge into two more focused property companies. What was your view on that? Is this bad news for investors going forward? Is this stock going to fall off of top indices like the FTSE 100 and the Aussie 40?
Well, Stephen, I think it's probably quite negative for the shareholders. And we actually haven't seen the breakdown of their basket. However, in a positive note, does provide them with a choice in terms of risk. We did see a bit of support on the share price. We think it's probably short covering this morning. They have turned negative. In terms of rules, Stephen, the actual split. Both companies would remain on the index, and then it would actually depend on the actual split in terms of cap size in each entity, and then obviously they would stay there until the next quarterly review, and then the actual status in the index would then come under review. So it really depends on how they're going to split out the businesses, Stephen, going forward.